Water gives life and joy to living. So use water wisely. Keep our waters clean and have fun in it. Each one of us has a part to play to ensure that there is always water for generations to come.
Christopher is like many other children, energetic, playful. This healthy 10-year-old is no different from you and me. 60% of his body is made up of water, so is 70% of his brain, 82% of his blood, and nearly 90% of his lungs. Very naturally, it doesn't take much for Christopher and his friends to realize that water is life.
Without water, we can't survive. Everything will rot.
You'll get dehydrated.
Water is not something that Singaporeans take much notice of, not until Mother Nature threatens to dry up the wells. After all, the drought that hit both Singapore and Johor in 1963 is only a nostalgic memory of grandparents. That was when Singapore was forced to ration water for more than half a year, the longest it had ever experienced. And statistics like 1 in every 5 people on this planet has no access to safe drinking water seems like a remote fact found in books. Simply because clean potable water is readily available on this land of 680 square kilometers. But availability is different from abundance.
This is what the future holds if we use water like there's no tomorrow.
For us in Singapore, we have a small piece of land, and on this small piece of land we live, we work, we play, and we got to tap every drop of water for drinking.
Water demand grew 9 times to 300 million gallons of 500 Olympic-sized pools a day. This far exceeds Singapore's population growth of 4 times since the 1950s. With its population pushing 5.5 million, water consumption in 10 years' time will be a fifth more than today's. Rapid economic development and rising housing needs put pressure on another scarce resource, land. About half of this country's precious land has already been set aside for water catchment, but more is needed to meet growing demand. Singapore has been importing water from Johor in Malaysia to supplement its local supply.
We are a small country, and therefore we don't have the luxury of waiting for progress to take place following the natural course of development. We got to envision the future, bring it forward, get up and make sure that it happens. And that is a very valuable lesson. I guess that's a story of Singapore all along.
The story of Singapore's water management strategy started with its only indigenous renewable source of water, rainfall. Runoff like this was a potential source of additional supply. But at times, it could be a bane. So PUB started to look into the drainage systems in new housing estates in the 70s, and Singapore became one of the first in the world to systematically harness rainwater from urbanized catchments. At the same time, it wanted to control flooding.
Singapore as a whole has tried to become self-sustaining in terms of its water supply, and rather than, unlike many developing countries, extending its tentacles further and further away into undeveloped areas to obtain water, it largely has sought to supply its water supply internally from its internal resources.
Dr. Harley was involved in the Bedok Seletar scheme in 1980. It was to capture and treat runoff from a combined area of about 5,000 hectares. Lower Seletar Reservoir in Yishun was developed by constructing a dam across a coastal estuary and turning it into a freshwater reservoir. While Bedok Reservoir was converted from a quarry that provided sand for construction activities. Bedok, Tampines and Yishun were the first new housing estates to capture rainwater using contemporary drainage systems. Collection ponds like this were built to capture runoff flows before pumping to the reservoirs. This is possible because Singapore's drainage is separate from its sewerage system.
There were some concerns that runoff from urban towns was unsuitable for use as a drinking water source. It certainly had not been done in a deliberate fashion in many of the Western countries, and that involved taking quite a leap of faith on PUB's part that this was viable. And in fact, the Bedok water treatment plant was one of the very first in the world that had ozone in the pre- and post-ozonation process.
Linking drainage to reservoirs gave rise to one great need: better social habits. Every piece of litter that falls carelessly into a drain could eventually find its way to a river or canal that leads to a reservoir. These primary 6 students are on their way to stop a river monster.
So the purpose of today's presentation is that we want to see how you can help us stop the river monster.
Ping Ping, a working mother of a 5-month-old child, has been devoting about 5 hours a week of her time to the Waterways Watch Society. It's a volunteer group that brings people together to monitor, restore and protect the aesthetics of Singapore's waterways.
We'll show you how to do the recording of the items that you've collected. We're trying to tell the kids to say that rubbish to get into the rivers, and we tell them how the rubbish get into rivers even though they are not by the riverside and all this, they are at home in the playground.
Hundreds of school children have attended the River Monster program since 2003. This program is supported by PUB as part of its effort to encourage social involvement. These primary 6 children are made to learn fast. They now get to see how ugly the river monster can be.
We stay here. It's important because the water that we dirty is the water that we drink and we use. That's why.
2 cans. 1 mega can.
We can help to do community work like now to help us to clean the litters and tell people not to be so inconsiderate to anyhow litter everywhere.
Our drinking water can be it's limited, so more pollution means less water.
We probably take generations to see the results. We got to start somewhere. But I mean, judging from the enthusiasm they have, the energy they have, hopefully this is translated to actions.
With a river as clean as this, it's easy for young Singaporeans like Christopher to overlook the conscious need to be environmentally friendly. For they are the generation that has not witnessed the transformation of the rivers in the city. They don't remember the Singapore and Kallang rivers the way the chairman of PUB does.
There were sawmills along the river banks, and the logs were brought in by large lorries, and they used the river as a storage area. Otherwise, the logs will crack in the sun. So the logs cluttered up the whole river of Kallang River, and we remembered going down to do site survey, to construct canals and so on, and we were an unwelcome sight in those days. I remember the sawmillers would take stones and throw at us in those days. But they bring back good old memories, Those sites were an artist's delight, I would say, but they are a water manager's nightmare.
Tan Gee Po's nightmare was a task that few would envy, drawing up the master plans called Cleaning Up of Singapore River and Kallang Basin. He was then head of the Drainage Department in the Ministry of the Environment. At that time, the rivers were polluted with little or no marine life. Wastes were discharged into the watercourses and stench pervaded the surrounding areas. The 10-year cleanup project began in 1977 when the then Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew opened Pierce Reservoir. He voiced concern over the highly polluted state of Singapore's scarce resource, water.
Whatever it is, it should be a way of life to keep the water clean, to keep every stream, every culvert, every rivulet free from unnecessary pollution. In 10 years, let's have fishing in the Singapore River and fishing in the Kallang River. It can be done.
11 government departments, ministries and statutory boards took on the challenging task of fulfilling this resolution. Squatters were resettled. Most of the 26,000 families were moved to public housing built by the Housing Development Board. Pig and duck farms were phased out, while more than 2,800 backyard trades and cottage industries were moved to industrial estates. These were built by HDB and Jurong Town Corporation. Close to 5,000 street hawkers were resited, and by 1986, there were no more unlicensed street hawkers. When the lighters vacated the Singapore River, more than 260 tons of rubbish were collected and disposed in the month-long operation. They were moved to Pasir Panjang, managed by the Port of Singapore Authority. In 1984, about 390 vegetable wholesalers operating at Upper Circular Road were relocated to Pasir Panjang Vegetable Wholesale Market. And by 1985, the few boatyards that were left at Geylang River implemented pollution control measures. Charcoal traders along the same river were relocated to Lorong Halus in Tampines.
I think the most challenging task looking back is there has to be a mindset change in the people. We have to put in, of course, the basic facilities like sewerage and solid waste management. By themselves, they are a gigantic task. We got to sewer every house, every restaurant, every shop house. We have to make sure that there are sufficient waste removal facilities. We have to build incineration plants for solid waste disposal and so on. That itself is a mammoth task.
By 1987, the night soil bucket system was phased out. Mud banks in Kallang Basin were dredged and sandy beaches created. The completion of the river cleanup in 1987 was only the start of a bigger plan.
In 20 years, it is possible that there could be breakthroughs in technology, both anti-pollution and filtration. And then we can dam up or put a barrage at the mouth of the marina, the neck that joins the sea. And we'll have a huge freshwater lake. The advantages are obvious.
And Minister Mentro Lee's vision is about to take shape in less than 20 years, right at this site. In January 2005, PUB awarded a $226 million contract to a local contractor to build the Marina Barrage at the mouth of the 350-metre-wide Marina Channel. By using this dam to keep seawater out, 3 objectives will be achieved. It will help turn Kallang Basin, Marina Bay and Marina Channel into a freshwater reservoir. While tapping water from urbanized catchments is not new to PUB, this is the largest created so far. This 15th reservoir will help enlarge Singapore's water catchment from half to 2/3 of the island by 2009.
At that time, in 1987, PUB told me we can't use the water because catchment is the city itself, and water will be too highly polluted with all kinds of microbes, viruses, etc. I was fairly optimistic that given time, because of the growing demand for water worldwide, especially in cities, there would be research to find a way to filter highly polluted, urbanized waste. It's come sooner than I expected, less than 20 years. And with membrane technology, we are now able to be self-sufficient eventually.
The barrage will also act as a tidal barrier to control flooding in the city. Lastly, it will create a new water playground and lifestyle attraction. With the new Marina Reservoir collecting waters from a wide and densely populated urban area, a seemingly innocent throw into the far reaches of a river can add up to pollution in the central catchment.
It's a very slow process. If you watch our new towns, it's cleaned up every morning or every evening. Next day, it litters up. But the litter is not inside the flats, it's outside. We've started competitions between different blocks within a precinct, inter-precincts award prizes. And that has helped because it lowered the cost of cleaning and it made the place neater and cleaner. So slowly and gradually through the schools, we can get a generation that grows up and takes ownership. These are public spaces. Every Singaporean owns them.
Singapore has been constantly looking for ways to expand its water resource. And the Marina Barrage will help add 10,000 hectares of catchment to capture the traditional source, rain. But this method has its limits. Land is scarce here, so catchments are finite. What nature fails to provide, technology offers alternatives and diversifications.
Our greatest strength has been that we are able to integrate all the various government agencies that deal with water, and they are all now put under PUB. This follows the closing of the water loop. So today we can handle anything that concerns water, from rainwater to used water to desalted water to new water, and we take care of all of them because we're integrated this way. We can use technologies that cut across the various parts of the water cycle, optimize it, and produce water in the most cost-effective manner.
2, 3, go.
In February 2005, the Minister for the Environment and Water Resources marked the completion of the tunnelling work for Phase 1 of the Deep Tunnel Sewerage System, or DTSS. This system can carry more than half of Singapore's used